belly fat.
Interesting. I'm ready.
A listener actually shared Dr. Mindy Pelz's YouTube video on burning belly fat fast. And let me tell you, she's got some really fascinating ideas that I think you'll find interesting.
I've seen some of her stuff before. It's good.
Yeah, what I found most intriguing is how she ties belly fat to stress.
Cortisol.
Exactly. She really hits home the point that not all fat is the same.
Right. And she's absolutely right. It's important to understand that when we talk about belly fat, we're specifically talking about visceral fat.
Visceral fat.
Yeah, it's the kind that sits deep within your abdomen, surrounding your organs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same as the subcutaneous fat you can pinch, like on your arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and visceral fat is actually metabolically active, meaning it pumps out inflammatory compounds, and that can increase the risk of a whole bunch of health issues.
Wow. So I guess that makes it pretty clear why we need to target belly fat specifically. But the whole idea that stress can actually contribute to belly fat is pretty eye-opening to me.
It really is. Think about it this way. When you experience stress, your body releases cortisol.
Okay, yeah.
And that's totally normal. It's a natural response. It helps you deal with whatever stressful situation you're facing at that moment. But here's the thing.
Oh, girl.
If you're constantly stressed, if you're in that chronic stress mode, those cortisol levels stay elevated.
Oh, no.
And your body starts storing that extra energy as visceral fat, primarily around your belly.
Ah, that makes sense. So it's almost like your body is constantly in that fight or flight mode.
Exactly. Your body's holding on to fat as if it needs it for survival.
So interesting.
Yeah, it is. And that actually leads us perfectly into Dr. Pelz's first tip, which revolves around movement, but with a twist.
Okay, tell me more.
She actually recommends moving within 2 hours of waking up.
Now, why is that 2-hour window so important?
It's all about timing with your natural cortisol levels. See, cortisol naturally peaks in the morning. So if you get moving during that peak, you can actually use that cortisol as energy.
Oh, I get it. Instead of letting it get stored as belly fat, you're putting it to work.
You got it. You're hijacking that stress response, turning it into a fat-burning opportunity.
I love that.
And in the video, Dr. Pelz actually shares a little anecdote about this. She talks about how, during the pandemic, she'd make a point of walking around her neighborhood to manage her stress and keep those cortisol levels in check.
I see. Simple, accessible, anyone can do it.
Exactly. And it really gets you thinking, how we can all incorporate more movement into our lives, especially after stressful events, to prevent that cortisol from turning into belly fat.
That's a great point. Like, instead of reaching for another cup of coffee after a stressful meeting, maybe take a quick walk.
Exactly. Even just taking a few minutes to stretch and move around after waking up can make a difference. The key is to be proactive.
I like it. Use those natural hormonal fluctuations to your advantage. So what's Dr. Pelz's second tip?
Okay, this one is a little more intense. She's a big advocate for the 36-hour fast, especially when it comes to targeting that stubborn belly fat.
36 hours? That's a long time.
I know it sounds intimidating, but she even cites a research study in her video where participants who did these 36-hour fasts actually lost a significant amount of belly fat, even more so than fat in other areas.
Wow.
Now, of course, not everyone can or wants to fast for that long. Dr. Pelz really emphasizes the importance of finding what's sustainable for you. It's not about pushing yourself to extremes.
Makes sense.
Maybe start with a 16-hour fast and see how you feel.
And work your way up from there if you feel comfortable.
Exactly. It's your journey.
I think she also mentions that even doing like a 36-hour fast once a month can be helpful to prevent that belly fat from accumulating, so it's not necessarily an everyday thing.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot, that balance between challenging yourself and respecting your body's limits.
Now, this is where things start to get really interesting, because Dr. Pelz delves into the science of different types of fat.
Oh yeah, white fat versus brown fat.
Exactly. We've got white fat, which is that stubborn kind we all know, and let's be honest, probably don't love. And then we have brown fat, which is easier to burn.
And what's so fascinating about this is that fasting can actually play a role in converting that white fat to brown fat.
Oh, wow.
It's true. And that makes it much easier to lose weight.
So by incorporating fasting, you're basically telling your body, hey, let's start burning that stubborn fat.
Exactly. It's a metabolic shift that really encourages your body to use those white fat reserves for energy.
Now, does Dr. Pelz specify how long you need to fast for that conversion to happen?
She doesn't give a magic number. It seems like the key takeaway here is consistency. Whether you choose shorter, more frequent fasts or incorporate those longer fasts periodically, it's really about building a consistent fasting routine.
Got it. So you're essentially training your body to become a more efficient fat-burning machine over time.
Exactly. You got it.
All right, so far we've covered moving within those first 2 hours of waking up, incorporating 36-hour fasts, and building that consistent fasting routine to turn white fat to brown. But you know Dr. Pell?
Oh, yeah, she always has to add in an extra little something.
She does. And this one might make you shiver a little bit.
Oh, you're talking about the cold plunges.
I am. Cold plunges.
Yep.
Cold plunges. I have to admit, I'm both intrigued and terrified at the same time.
It's definitely a challenge, but when you think about it, you're essentially giving your metabolism this huge jolt. And there's actually research to back this up. Studies have shown that cold exposure can really stimulate brown fat activity, and that helps you burn more calories.
So it's like turning up the heat on your inner fat-burning furnace.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say I'm not quite ready to submerge myself in an ice bath. Are there more, let's say, beginner-friendly ways to incorporate cold exposure?
Absolutely. Start simple.
Like what?
Colder showers. That's a good place to start, and you can gradually decrease the temperature over time. You'd be surprised how adaptable your body can be.
I'll have to give that a try. You know, it's interesting, as we're discussing all these tips from Dr. Pell's, I'm struck by how interconnected everything is. Well, you know, moving during that cortisol peak, incorporating fasting, even exposing yourself to cold, it all seems to come back to working with your body's natural processes.
You're absolutely right. Dr. Pelz's approach isn't about forcing your body into some strict regimen. It's about understanding how your body naturally works and using those rhythms to your advantage.
I like that. It's like you're becoming the conductor of your own metabolism.
Exactly. Orchestrating everything for optimal fat burning.
I love that analogy. But let's be real for a second. Some of these strategies can seem a bit daunting, especially that 36-hour fast. For someone just starting out, what advice would you give to make these tips more approachable?
Honestly, I think the most important thing is to start small. You don't have to dive in head first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Find what feels sustainable for you. You don't need to jump into a 36-hour fast right away. Start with maybe a 12 or 16-hour fast and gradually increase the duration as you become more comfortable. And remember, consistency over intensity, always.
Dr. Pelz makes a great point in her video about finding your personal fasting rhythm. It's not about these rigid rules.
Yeah.
It's about finding what feels right for your body and your lifestyle.
You got it. Some people thrive on shorter, more frequent fasts, while others do better with those longer fasts spaced out over time. It's all about paying attention to those cues your body's giving you and adjusting as you go.
I like that. So, speaking of tuning into your body, can I ask you about cold plunges again? I'm curious, have you tried cold exposure yourself?
You know, I have. I haven't gone full ice bath yet, but I have incorporated cold showers into my routine.
Oh, wow. And how has that been?
Honestly, I have to say, I do feel a difference. More energized, more alert. My mind feels sharper. It's like that jolt in the morning really wakes up my entire system.
That's amazing. So it's not just about the physical benefits. It sounds like there might be mental benefits as well.
Yeah, there's actually more and more research coming out about the potential benefits of cold exposure. And they're not just physical. They're finding that cold exposure can actually improve your mood, help with cognitive function, and even boost your immune system.
So even if we're not quite ready to take the polar bear plunge, maybe a slightly cooler shower is a good first step.
Absolutely. And you never know. It could lead to unlocking a whole bunch of benefits you never even considered.
I like that. A gateway to good health. You know, what I'm taking away from all of this is that even these small changes can have a huge impact on your overall well-being.
I agree. You're not just targeting belly fat with these strategies. You're making a conscious effort to support your body in a holistic way.
That's a really important point. It's not about squeezing into a certain size. It's about feeling good in your own skin, having energy, and being able to really live life to the fullest.
That's it. That sense of vitality and well-being, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. So, as we start wrapping up our deep dive into Dr. Pelz's strategies, I'm curious. I've been thinking about her emphasis on moving within those first 2 hours of waking up. For those of us who aren't exactly morning people, that can seem a little, shall we say, challenging.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be a hardcore workout first thing in the morning.
True.
Just get your body moving. A brisk walk around the block, some light stretching, whatever feels good for you.
It's a good reminder that exercise doesn't always have to be this big, intense thing.
It doesn't. You can find ways to make it a part of your everyday life.
So true. Like, take the stairs instead of the elevator,
Yes.
park a little further away from the store, walk during your lunch break. Even just do some stretches while you're waiting for your coffee to brew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
So
Yeah.
that's a great point. I like that. It's
Yeah.
about shifting your perspective on exercise and making it an enjoyable part of your routine.
Make it an opportunity instead of an obligation.
Exactly. And when you look at it that way, it becomes much easier to stick with it. I think that's a really great point. I like how you put that. It's been really fascinating going through all of this with you. We've covered so much.
I know. From the science behind belly fat to the role that stress plays, and of course, all of Dr. Pills's tips.
Moving during that cortisol peak, the fasting, even those cold plunges,
It's been a lot to unpack.
it really has been. And, I have to say, I'm feeling super inspired and ready to start incorporating some of these strategies into my own life. How about you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's empowering, isn't it?
It is.
Knowing that we have the power to really influence our own health and well-being just by making these conscious choices.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember it's not about perfection. It's about progress.
Exactly. And finding what works best for you as an individual and being patient with yourself.
Totally. Don't be afraid to experiment and see what sticks. And most importantly, celebrate those small wins along the way.
Absolutely. And, there's no shame in reaching out for support or guidance along the way. There are tons of resources out there.
Yeah, that's so true. Online communities, health professionals, you name it. You don't have to go at it alone.
It's true. Surround yourself with a supportive network of people who are cheering you on.
I love that. Well, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive for today.
Already. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us as we dove deep into this fascinating topic of belly fat.
It's been my pleasure.
We hope you walked away with some valuable insights and feel motivated to take control of your health and well-being.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, knowledge is power. When you understand how your body works, you can make choices that support your overall health and happiness.
So well said. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep taking care of yourselves.
And we'll see you on our next deep dive.
Hi, everyone!